Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Okay, Hari Om. We'll get started with our satsang, renew it after a gap, but it was a productive gap anyway, so that's good. One auspicious aspect of today's satsang is my daughter's here sitting in front of me. She's quite jet lagged, so she doesn't, I'm still going to reverse the camera. There she is.
Hello, Varshini. How are you?
Just jet lagged.
Very tired. Where are you coming from?
And
the US.
She's coming from New York. Yeah, she just got in today. Amrita is here, of course, and my mother. Okay, so we'll get started. Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvina adidamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadasadhyayinim Ambatvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshinim. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yenatvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradeepa Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandanaha Partho Vatsat Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona Tata Jayadhrata Jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavai Rananadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Parasharya Vachas Saroja Mamalam Gitartha Gandotkatam Nanakyanaka Kesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajjana Shatpadairaharaha Pipiyamanam Muda Bhuyad Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradvam Sinashreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaisthavai Vedai Sangha Padakramo Panishadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyantam Na Vidusura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. So today we are going to start with chapter 11. We are a little away from that. We'll first do a recap and all of that. But thank you, Rama. And of course, Amrita also volunteered, so which is really nice. She will also be there. So let's get
Sarika. So
yeah, Sarika. Sarika, we miss her today. Hopefully she'll be joining next satsang onwards, but she is up in the hills. So, I'm a little uncertain about her connectivity, and I'm hoping that she's there from next week onwards. So, what have we done till now? I mean, we are of course, going through Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and we all know that our scriptures, our Upanishads, our Vedas, they are a vast treasure house of knowledge. And the Srimad Bhagavad Gita essentially brings to us this vast knowledge that is contained in the Vedas in a very simple and in a very uplifting manner. Most spiritual textbooks, as we know, they are essentially a compilation of philosophical principles. And that holds true not just for our Upanishads and the Vedas, but also across religions. And when we say compilation of philosophical principles, they deal with the world, the human being, and God. That is what they talk about. The Bhagavad Gita, it has been very beautifully expressed by Gurudev Swami Chinmayanandaji, and he says, is a handbook of instructions on how to actually live in accordance with these very same principles. That is the beauty of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Now, we have seen earlier also that Bhagavad Gita has 3 sections, or what we know as Kandatrayam. Section 1 is chapter 1 to 6, and along with dealing with and describing karma or action, it also gives clarity on the self, on Atman, which is nothing but Atma Swarupa. So when we go through chapter 1 to 6, we get knowledge about the Atman. Section 2 is chapter 7 to 12, and essentially deals with Ishvara Swarupa or Bhagavat Swarupa, that is the nature of Bhagwan. And along with that, details out devotion to Bhagwan or Upasana. And section 3, chapter 13 to 18, gives us details on Jnana, Bhakti, and Moksha. So we will summarize what we have learned. I think it is a good idea to just do a summary of what we have learned till now, because we are starting after a gap. Even though we had the assignment and all of that, I thought it will be a good idea to just cover what we have done till now to set everything in context and enable that continuity. And how I propose to do that is in 2 ways. One is just an overview of the topics covered on a chapter-wise basis. And all I'm going to do is list out the topics, that we have covered. And it will be nice if you can go through it sometime at leisure and try to link the topics with the respective verses. Right now, if we start doing that, it will be like going through chapter 1 onwards once all over again. So I'll just cover or just mention the list of topics that we have covered on a chapter-wise basis, and then focus essentially on the verses that we identified as sadhana, because those are the verses in each chapter which we said that is meant for us to focus on, contemplate on, and practice upon, which is essentially nothing but sadhana. So those we will cover. Chapter 1 is depiction of Arjuna's sorrow and delusion, Shoka and Moha, and it is known as Arjuna Vishada Yoga. The topics that we covered in chapter 1, first we began with Dhritarashtra's query. He asked Sanjaya what's going on in the battlefield. Sanjaya defines the arrays, the way the formations have been arranged in the battlefield. And then Arjuna is impatient and he wants to start with the war, and he actually commands his charioteer, Krishna, to take the chariot to the middle of the battlefield. And then Arjuna is beholding the opposition. He is looking at who are the people that are going to fight with him. And when he sees them, he sees his people, not the enemy. He sees his brothers, he sees his guru, he sees the Pitamaha, and he sees all that belong to him. And he has this conflict of aham and mama, my and mine. And that fallacy leads to despondency. And Arjuna, who actually commanded Krishna to take the chariot to the middle of the battlefield, is now despondent. From a position of command, he, has kind of fallen into or reaches a level of despair. And in this level of despair, he is shivering, He has fever. His bow slips out of his hand. He's sweating. His palms are sweaty. He's unable to stand up. He describes that his hair is standing on the edge. So he is frightened. He is afraid. He is absolutely nervous. He's essentially in a state of mental despair. So when one is in such a situation, the best thing to do is to seek help. And though, we don't have a clear-cut sadhana for chapter 1, chapter 2 almost, you can say, starts with the sadhana for chapter 1. Arjuna surrenders. That is in the beginning of chapter 2. And Arjuna says, Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha prichhami tvam dharma sammuda chetaha yachre yashyan nishchitam bruhitanme shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. So he says that my nature has been taken away, has been hijacked by Karpanya dosha. In a very simple term, self-pity. I'm pitying myself, that I have to fight with my own people. I'm in a battlefield. I don't want to do that. And my nature, which is essentially the nature of a warrior, has been destroyed by this aspect of self-pity. And with a mind confused about my own duty. What is my duty? I thought my duty was that of a soldier, but now I don't know what my duty is. And I ask thee, O Krishna. Initially he said, Krishna, my charioteer. Now he is accepting Krishna, Sri Krishna, as his guru. And he says, please tell me what is surely, nishchitam, bruhitanme. What is surely, what is certainly and permanently good for me? That you please tell me decisively. And he says, Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. I am your disciple. Teach me. I surrender to thee completely. And he surrenders. Then we move on to chapter 2. Actually, this verse is also part of chapter 2. Very beginning, it's verse 7 of chapter 2. Sri Krishna, before this, he blasts Arjuna, because of the state of despair in which he is in. He actually jolts him out through a dressing down of Arjuna. And then, of course, as we just saw, Arjuna surrenders. And then Sri Krishna starts giving out the knowledge, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And he starts with saying that the Atman is immortal. Then we cover nature of death. The paradigm of body, mind, and intellect. It is only the body, mind, and intellect that dies, not the soul. And the soul is the real, and what is unreal. That was what was covered then. And then non-attachment to karma or actions. How do you do your karma as duty without getting attached to it? Then the rebirth of the embodied. And then Bhagavan comes to the duty aspect of it. Do not swerve from your duty. Transform karma into karma yoga. The way of the worldly, how the people are there in samsara. The key to yoga. And finally, definition of the enlightened. Bhagavan talks about, or Arjuna asks about who the Sthita Pragya or the enlightened is, and Bhagavan answers his question. So essentially in chapter 2, Bhagavan is giving a solution to this Arjuna problem. And he uses uniting with knowledge as the solution to the Arjuna problem. And he does this by giving Atma Vidya, which is nothing but knowledge about the self, and also Swadharma Vidya, which is knowledge about one's duty. And this is what Bhagavan uses to give knowledge and uses that knowledge to help Arjuna overcome or start beginning to overcome his delusion. And what, after getting this knowledge, Bhagavan gives the technique to attain wisdom. Buddhir Yogi, he talks about, right? He gives the technique to attain wisdom. And with this wisdom, one attains perfection in action and equipoise under extremities. Because the world is going to present extremities to us. And how do you remain equipoised? And that was the sadhana for the second chapter. And Bhagavan says, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So, O Dhananjaya, and through Arjuna, of course, we all are, getting the same message. He says, perform action steadfast in yoga, abandoning attachment. and being balanced in success and in failure. Siddhya, Asiddhya. And what is this yoga that Bhagavan talks about, that one has to be steadfast in? Samatvam yoga uchyate. Evenness of mind is called yoga. In fact, through this verse, Bhagavan gives a beautiful definition of yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. The evenness of mind is defined as yoga. Chapter 3 is Karma Yoga. Action with the right attitude, described as the foundation for spiritual life. And Bhagavan talks about what this attitude while performing action is. So initially, we start with Arjuna's doubt regarding knowledge and action. Arjuna says, Bhagavan, on one side, you're saying knowledge is the solution to my problem. On the other side, you're ghora, he uses the word ghora. You are making me perform this terrible action, which is war. So I'm confused. What are you saying? Is knowledge better or action better? We start chapter 3 with that question of Arjuna. And then Bhagavan says that Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga are complementary. And then he talks about the Yajna spirit and its greatness. Yajna spirit, the spirit of sacrifice, the spirit of being able to do something for the sake of your duty, for the higher cause. That spirit, Yajna spirit, and the greatness of Yajna spirit. And then he talks about the causal chain and the cosmic order, and why Yajna and the spirit of sacrifice is so crucial to keep this cosmic chain alive. Because if the spirit of Yajna is broken, the entire cosmos itself is at risk. And then he talks about Atman being beyond action. And how and why does Bhagavan himself take action? Why does he act? And then he moves on to action that are taken by the wise and by the deluded. And then the knower of action and the causes, the knower of the causes of action. And then he talks about dedicating action to the higher, Ishwararpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi. And finally ends chapter 3 with the two primary foes. Arjuna asks, so what are the two? You have told me so much and I'm happy and I'm learning. But what is that one thing that if I control, everything else will be easy to conquer, easy to overcome? And Bhagavan actually lists not just one, but two, which is desire and anger. Kama and Krodha are the two primary foes of human being. So action or karma has a natural disposition to create inherent tendencies. When we act, we create tendencies within us. And these are termed as vasanas. And these vasanas lead to disturbances. At the same time, not taking action is impossible. Each one of us are bound by our nature to act. And Bhagavan prescribes karma yoga, which is karma with the right attitude, with the Ishwararpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi, as a solution to this. Taking action and dedicating it to the higher cause, to Bhagavan, to Ishvara, and receiving the fruits with equanimity. And that leads to the sadhana for third chapter, which is Tasmad Asakta Satatam Karyam Karma Samachara Asakto Hyacharan Karma Paramapnoti Purushaha. So Bhagavan says, Tasmad, therefore, O Arjuna, always perform action with dedication. Samachara, excellence. The devotion, Shraddha, and with the dedication that gives joy, fulfillment, and love for what we do. We often hear that whatever our job is, if our job is something that we enjoy, then it becomes easy to perform. So Bhagavan says, do it the other way around. Perform whatever your duties are with joy. Perform your duties with that sense of Shraddha, that sense of fulfillment, which are your obligatory action, which you have to do. You're obliged to do it. And without attachment. Do it without worrying about what is going to happen. If I act, if I don't act, which is exactly where Arjuna was. Because performing action, without attachment, the person attains the supreme, is what Bhagavan says. Chapter 4, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, deals with knowledge in more detail. And then using that very same knowledge to see the actions we perform in a different light. And how do we do that? When you see the actions that you perform distantly from the action itself. Oftentimes what happens is when we are performing action, we dive into it, quote unquote, like we often hear. We dive into it so much that we lose ourselves in the action. But how do we perform that action with excellence, with dedication, but that sense of detachment? And when we do that, we see it outside. Being away from the action itself, we are able to observe our own actions. And when we observe our own actions, we see it in a different light. And this then enables renunciation of sense of doership. That sense of I and my is renounced. That is why jnana of karma sannyasa, which is the name of the chapter. The sense of doership, that giving up the sense of agency, where I feel that I am doing. This is my action, I am doing. And such a person who is able to detach from the action and observe it and give up that sense of doership, that person is able to see the truth beyond the facade. It's like in the initial days, people thought the earth was flat, but that was not the truth. It was just a facade. Sometimes when we are sitting on the beach, you see the sun setting and we say that sun is setting. Sun is not setting. That's just a facade. So it took a number of years of progress in science for human beings to realize the truth behind the facade. Similarly, all of our actions on a day-to-day basis, when we are able to not get attached to the action, we are able to see the truth behind the facade. The topics that we covered in chapter 4, the imperishable knowledge given by Brahman, that knowledge that Bhagavan gives is imperishable. The Avatara Rahasya, he talks about, how he takes Avatara and the purpose of Avatara. The truth behind action and inaction. What is action? What is inaction? The philosophy of action. And then what is pure action? The varieties of sacrifices. Earlier he had eulogized, he had praised sacrifice, praised yajna. Now he talks about the various varieties of sacrifices. And then he says that doubt hampers growth, hampers spiritual growth in this sense. But anyway, when that samshayam is there, when the doubt is there, that time, when you have a doubt on any topic that we are reading, it is going to hamper our growth or reaching our level of expertise on that particular topic. Similarly here, doubt will hamper spiritual growth and the supremacy of this knowledge that Bhagavan is giving. These are the topics. And our sadhana was karmanya karmaya paschet akarmani cha karmaya sabuddhiman manushyeshu sayukta krishna karmakrita. One who recognizes inaction in action and action in inaction is wise among human beings. Such a person is a yogi and an accomplisher of all undertakings. Chapter 5 is Karma Sannyasa Yoga, or Yoga of Renunciation, which is giving up of the anxieties arising out of preoccupation towards the result of our actions or the fruits of our actions. Because we are preoccupied towards what is going to happen, I'm going to go sit in an exam, what is going to happen, am I going to pass or fail? That anxiety will impact my exam itself. So Bhagavan talks about how do you delve into true renunciation, how do you truly renunciate that anxiety? How are you able to renunciate those preoccupations with the fruits of the action? So this chapter starts with Arjuna's doubt regarding action and renunciation of action. In the previous chapter, Bhagavan had talked about renunciation of action. So earlier, Arjuna's doubt was between action. Oh Bhagavan, you are telling me that knowledge is prime, but you are forcing me to do this battle. So what should I do? Should I go and do tapas and get jnana, or should I fight this battle? That was his doubt. Here his doubt is, Bhagavan, should I be doing action, fighting the battle, or should I be actually doing meditation? Because through that meditation, I drop the fruits or attachment to the fruits of action. And then Bhagavan says, Karma Yoga is Karma Sannyasa. Karma, when you do as Karma Yoga, is one of the biggest forms of sannyasa. And then moves on to being untainted while performing action, which is what we just talked about. Action and fruits at the level of the Purusha, which is Swabhava or nature, and action and fruits at the level of Ishvara, which is Prakriti. So Bhagavan described Prakriti and action and fruits at that level also. Then he talked about how knowledge removes ignorance and then reveals the divinity. Just like light removes darkness and then reveals what was hidden by that darkness, similarly, knowledge removes ignorance and then reveals the divinity which is hidden by ignorance. And then Bhagavan talks about how the knower has a balanced view, the bliss of Brahman, and the bliss of Brahman as distinct from sense pleasures, the body, mind, intellect, whatever they give us. And the sadhana was Brahmanyadhyaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyate nasapapena padmapatram mivambhasa. So one who does actions, offering them to Brahman, offering them to Bhagavan, abandoning attachment, offering to the higher ideal, to the higher cause, is not tainted by sin. Just like a lotus leaf remains unaffected by the water on it, even though it is in contact with that water. And beautifully, Bhagavan described sin here, that sin is nothing but the mental disturbance that is there when you get attached to the result of the action. So when you perform action in this manner, like a lotus petal, which is in contact with water, similarly, you are performing action in contact with the world, but untainted by the anxieties. Then, when one who does that in this way does not have that disturbance, does not have that sin. And then we moved on to Dhyana Yoga, which is chapter 6, the yoga of meditation. Now, till now, Bhagavan has told us how to prepare this mind and intellect. Using action, while doing action, because we are forced to do action anyway. So, performing action, how do you develop your mind and intellect to a level where it does not get impacted by the result of action? And that mind and intellect, which through the technique that Bhagavan has taught in the first 5 chapters, that mind and intellect is now ready to sit down in meditation. And how do you sit down in meditation? You bring that mind and intellect under the control of the intelligent will of the human being. And how that is done is what Bhagavan teaches in chapter 6. And such a mind and intellect, which is then under the control of the intelligent will through meditation, is better equipped for self-contemplation, self-unfoldment, and self-realization. And how this is done through this meditation, Bhagavan actually starts listing out, we'll cover that in the topics when we go there, is through meditation is the theme of chapter 6. And as you get better and better and better in meditation, progressing through this yoga of meditation or dhyana yoga to yoga of harmonizing with the true self, which is our true nature, being in harmony with our true nature, which essentially is divine. How do we be in harmony with the true divine nature of ourselves, or Atma Samyama Yoga? That is what chapter 6 is all about. So the topics we covered, number 1, Bhagavan says Karma Yoga is a must. Don't think that you can sit in meditation and do nothing. Without doing Karma Yoga, you will not be able to sit in meditation. So Karma Yoga is a must. And then he goes on to the favorable environment for meditation, including how the place should be, how the seat should be, how the posture should be, and so on and so forth. Then he talks about the method of meditation. Then the criteria for progress in meditation. How do you progress? How do you get more and more into the dhyana? And then he talks about progress in yoga itself. Yoga, which yoga? Dhyana yoga. And then being established in this yoga, being established in meditation, the yoga ruda. And then moving from Yoga Ruda to a Yukta. Yukta is one who has that capability of the yoga. Being in harmony within and without. Controlling the restive mind, because the mind is going to be restive. There will be disturbances. How do you control the restive mind? The fate of the imperfect yogi, because even after all this, many people, they are not able to reach that state of perfection. What happens to them? And that leads to the beautiful concept of Sanatana Dharma, which is the optimism of continuity after life. And then Bhagavan says that the yogi is supreme. The one who is able to do this dhyana yoga is supreme. And then he says the bhakta is the supreme yogi. Among the yogis, the bhakta is supreme. Yogi is supreme, and among the yogis, the bhakta is supreme. And the sadhana, yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachame na pranashyati. One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me. Sees me everywhere and sees everything in me. And we are going to come to that now in chapter 11. So he touches upon this in chapter 6 itself. That person is never distant from me. And I am never distant from that person. Chapter 7 then was Jnana Vijnana Yoga, or the yoga of knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge and experiential wisdom. Bhagavan says that I'll give you the knowledge and I'll give you the technique to gain the wisdom. At the end of the 6th chapter, the previous chapter, Bhagavan had described that the greatest yogi is one who worships him. We just saw that also. The bhakta is the greatest yogi. With single-pointed concentration, chitta ekagrata, and utmost devotion. That is what Bhagavan says towards the end of chapter 6. Thus, because he has said that, now from chapter 7, he starts describing, he starts giving knowledge about the nature of himself as the object of worship. So he says that worship me with single-pointed concentration and utmost devotion. Now, who is this me? That is what Bhagavan starts in chapter 7. So he starts describing his nature, himself as the object of worship, and the methods of developing this utmost devotion that he talks about. How do you develop this utmost devotion? The topics we covered in this chapter, Paraprakriti and Aparaprakriti. The pure in all elements and beings is Bhagavan. The isness, because of which any element is what it is Bhagavan. Then the apparent and the reality of his nature. What is apparent? What is the real nature of Bhagavan? Then he talks about the Maya of the 3 gunas. And then the power of appearing as Prakriti. Then he moves on to the 4 kinds of evildoers. People who do not worship, who do not do the right things, who do not do their duties. And he follows it up with the 4 kinds of virtuous people. Then he talks about the followers of minor gods, the various gods that we all know about. And that all roads lead to Bhagavan, ultimately. And the discerning and the non-discerning among various people. And the sadhana we had was Matta Parataram Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvamidam Prottam Sutre Maniganaiva. So Bhagavan says there is none higher than me, O Dhananjaya. All this variety is strung in me like a collection of gems that are strung on a string. And he says that I am that string, and all the variety that you see in creation are the gems. I am hidden behind that, but I am holding it all together. And then we also had one more sadhana for this chapter. Ye chaiva satvika bhavaha rajasastamasaschaye matta evaiti tan vidhi natvaham teshu te mai. And he says additionally, all beings with different kinds of nature, beings with pure nature or sattvika bhava, rajasika bhava or active nature, or tamasika bhava, dull nature. All these beings, know them, Arjuna, that they have come from me. They have arisen from me. I am the source of them all. So beautiful statement where Bhagavan is telling us not to discriminate against anybody, because everything originates from him anyway. And then he says, indeed, I am not in them, they are in me. Then we move on to chapter 8, Akshara Brahma Yoga, or the yoga of the imperishable Brahman. Now again, at the end of chapter 7, Bhagavan says that those who are devoted to him come to know 7 things. They were beautiful. I'll encourage you to go back and read those aspects and the 8th hidden aspect, right? And together with these 7 or 8, 7 plus the 1 hidden aspect, he says the knower of these, they get to know all knowledge about all the karma, which is all action, the self, which is Atman, and Brahman, which is Ishvara. And in chapter 8, Bhagavan explains these in detail. So he talks about the worship of Bhagavan, then the different ways of worship for different people, depending on their nature. Satvika, Tamasika, Rajasika, depending on their nature, how do you worship? Worship as a habit. How do you make it a habit? How the yogi relinquishes the body. The state of non-return. Brahma, or the creator standard of time. We went through the concept of time, as defined in Sanatana Dharma and also as defined by modern science. Then he talks about immortality. And then the paths of light and the path of darkness, which is nothing but the path of knowledge and the path of ignorance. And then he finishes the chapter by saying, be a yogi to reach the Supreme. And our sadhana was, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyacha mayyar pitamano buddhihi ma me vaishyasya samshayam. And he says, therefore, in every moment of your life, remember me and perform your duties. The 8th hidden aspect was, how do you remember Bhagavan when you're letting go of prana? Right? And when he says, be a yogi or aspire to be a yogi is one, ultimate yogi is one who is able to control that last breath leaving the body. And at that moment, by the virtue of that control, is able to think about Bhagavan at that moment. And Bhagavan says, all of you, everyone can do that. Simple solution, think about me at every moment of your life. Do whatever you're doing, thinking about me. When you do that, automatically when the prana leaves, you will be thinking about me. It's a beautiful statement that Bhagavan makes there. If you think about whatever you do in a day-to-day life is what will remain towards the end also. Whoever we are is what we will go as. So if we are devoting ourselves to the higher, at the last moment also, we will remember him. So with the mind and intellect absorbed in me, you shall come to me alone without a doubt. Asamshayam. Chapter 9, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga. The yoga of royal science and royal secret. Bhagavan explains the eminence of the Supreme, the nature of upasana or devotion, which then evolves into bhakti. And the topics we covered there, the relationship between Saguna Brahman, or Saguna means the one with gunas, and Prakriti, the ways of the ignorant, the ways of the devoted, the ways of the enjoyment seekers, people who revel in the samsara. And then Bhagavan said Ishvara is everything, and worship of Ishvara is the easiest. And our sadhana was Yat karoshi yadasnasi Yat juhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. So he says, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give in charity, whatever austerities, tapas that you practice, all of that, do it as an offering to me. Chapter 10, Vibhuti Yoga, the yoga of divine glories. In this chapter, Arjuna wants to know how one can constantly keep in touch with Bhagavan. See, earlier Bhagavan had said no. 2 things he had said. One was, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yadhyacha. Every moment of your life, remember me and do your duty. And then he also said, Yat karoshi, yadasnasi, yat joshi, whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you eat, whatever you give, whatever you, austerity, tapasya, whatever you do, think about, offer it to me. So Arjuna is saying, how do I do this? How do I all the time remember you while being distracted in this world, which has so much of things going on? While living in this world, while transacting in this pluralistic world, how do I do this that you are asking me to do, Bhagavan? How can I meditate upon you and know you? In what and what aspects do I do this? Which are the various aspects? And in response, Sri Krishna says that while it is impossible to list out all his glories, because they are inexhaustive, he says that I will indicate to you, I will point out the elements that capture your attention, that enrapture your heart. And among all his manifold manifestations, he says, if you focus on these, you will learn to focus on everything while thinking about me. And he encourages us to see Bhagavan in these elements, in these vibhutis that we cover. And the topics in this chapter where Ishvara is the source of everything, the knowledge of vibhuti fosters devotion. When you understand vibhuti, devotion comes within you. Bliss is evident in his glories. In Bhagavan's glories, they are all blissful. And the vibhutis, he defines all of them, the 70 vibhutis he defines, and then he gives the essence of the vibhutis. And our sadhana was Yadyat vibhuti mat sattvam Srimadurjitam evava Tattat evava gachatvam Mamatejom sashambhavam. In whatever glorious experience, prosperous or powerful, that whatever you see, all these glorious experiences of you, that is a manifestation of a part of my splendor. So this, I had, which is normally unusual, but that was a monologue, so I apologize for that, but I thought it will be worth doing this to ensure that we start with continuity. With that, we come to chapter 11. And in chapter 10, after explaining his various glorious manifestations, his manifold divine expressions, Bhagavan, in the last verse, he says, Athava bahunaitena kimyatena tavarjuna vishtabhya ahamidam kritsnam ekamkshena stitho jagat. He says, how can you know of my glories in so many ways, Arjuna? Let me just explain to you in one simple sentence. I exist supporting this entire creation by a small fraction of me. So Bhagavan uses two terms here. One, he says bahunaitena. Bahunaitena means many, all, entire, this, that, and everything. Whatever we see, anything, whether it's a tube, whether it is water, whether it is flower, whether it is wood, anything, people, anything that we see which is part of this creation, this, that, and everything, Bhagavan says bahunaitena is manifested in me. And the other term he uses is ekamkshena. He says ekamkshena means one small fraction, one small part of me that is upholding all of this. Now Arjuna is seeing Sri Krishna standing in front of him. And Sri Krishna is telling him that all of this is manifested in me. And he says the small portion of me is upholding all of this. And he's standing in front of him, and Arjuna is looking at him, and he wonders if there is any possibility of seeing this entire creation in Bhagavan, the way Bhagavan is describing. Can I see this entire Vishwa in you now, O Lord? In other words, can I have a darshana of Vishwarupa? Thus, we have Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga, or the yoga of the vision of the cosmic form. So we did a summary of what all we have learned till now. Arjuna does exactly the same in the beginning of this chapter. So he himself summarizes what he has learned. See, till now we have seen, every now and then we have seen Bhagavan Sri Krishna summarizing. he will say, this is what I have told you till now. For the first time, the student summarizes and says, Bhagavan, this is what I have learned from you to me. In the first two verses of chapter 11 is Arjuna summarizing what he has learned till now. The verse 1 is dealing with chapters 1 to 6, which is about the knowledge of the self, and verse 2, chapters 7 to 10, which is about the nature of Ishvara and devotion. And of course, chapter 1 to 6 is also about karma. So with that, we will start chapter 11. Over to you, Rama. Thanks for Om Shri Paramatma.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Ata Srimad Bhagavad Gita.
Ata Srimad Bhagavad Gita.
Ata Ekadashodhyayaha.
Atha Ekadashodhyayaha.
Vishvarupa Darshana Yogaha.
Vishvarupa Darshana Yogaha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Madhunagrahaya Paramam Grihya Madhyanma Sanjitam.
Madanugrahaya Paramam Guhya Madhyatma Sanyitam.
Yakva Yoktam Vachasena Mahoyam Vigato Mama.
Yatvayoktam vachastena mohoyam vigato mama. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Ekadashodhyayaha. Vishvarupa Darshana Yogaha. Arjuna Uvacha. Madanugrahaya Paramam Guhya Madhyatma Sanyitam. Yatvayoktam vachastena mohoyam vigato mama. So, Arjuna Vacha. Madanugrahaya means in order to bless me. Anugraha. In order to bless me, O Krishna, I surrendered to you. Remember, we also saw today in the quick revision. He says, Sishyasteham Shadimam Tvam Prapannam. I surrendered to you. And I surrendered to you specifically asking you to clearly, explicitly give me a direction that removes my sorrow and delusion. And in order to bless me so that my sorrow and delusion are removed, what did Bhagavan do? He says, you, Paramam Guhyam, the supreme secret. Paramam, the supreme, Guhyam, secret. So he says that what is the supreme secret? Adhyatma Sanyitam. That which is termed as Adhyatma. Adhyatma, knowledge pertaining to the self. And he says, Yat Vayoktam Vachastena. That which you explained to me so well, so excellently you explained to me. And he says, with that, Mohoyam Vigato Mama. This delusion of mine is gone. So he says this Paramam Guhyam. So he talks about the Adhyatma Vidya as the Paramam Guhyam. Bhagavan also had said this. And we have read about this multiple times. Why this is secret? Secret is something that people do not know. Secret is also something that is not grasped even when explained repeatedly. That is not understood, that is not grasped. So in fact, in the Upanishads it said, Shravana yapi bahubir yona labhya. Shrunvantopi bahuvo yamna vidyuhu. Acharyo bhakta kushalosya nyata. So in the Upanishads they say, Shravana yapi bahubir yona labhya. For many, even an opportunity to listen to this does not arise. Shrunvantopi, even those who listen. Bahuvo yamna vidyuhu. They listen, but they don't grasp it. So the opportunity to listen doesn't arise, but even when you listen, the grasp is not there. Like a weak student in a class, right? If you're bunking, there is no opportunity to listen. Even if you are sitting in class and everything is going above your head, nothing is being grasped, which is true for here also. Ascharyo Vakta Kushalosya Jnata. Rare is the person who explains this, and blessed is the person who grasps this. How beautifully it is said. And Arjuna is now saying, you have explained Bhagavan to me in such an excellent manner. This adhyatma, this knowledge which pertains to the self. And knowing which, I have got rid of my delusion. Mohoyam vigato mama. Arjuna had delusion relating to aham and mama, me and mine, and also relating to swadharma, which is what is my duty? What do I have to do? What his duty was? And through Bhagavan's teachings, this delusion is gone. And then he continues in verse 2.
Bhavapnayau hi bhutanam
Bhavapyayau hi bhutanam
Shutau vistarasho maya
Shrutau vistarasho maya
Sattva kamala patraksha
Tvatta kamala patraksha
Mahatmayamapi chavyama
Mahatmyam api chavyayam Mahatmyam api chavyayam
Mahatmyamapi chavyayam
Bhavapyayau hi bhutanam Shrutau vistarasho maya Tvattah kamala patraksha Mahatmyam api chavyayam. So he says, Kamala Patraksha, O lotus-eyed Krishna, one who has eyes in the shape of lotus petals. That's how he addresses Krishna. And he says, Bhava. Bhava means the birth, the origin. Apyau, the dissolution, the destruction of what? Bhutanam, all objects and beings. And he says, he surely, Shrutau, have been heard by me, Maya, Vistarasho in great detail. I've heard about the origin of beings, the destruction of beings, the origin of objects, the destruction of objects. All this I've heard in great detail. Remember, we have come from chapter 7 to 10. Then he says, I've heard from what? Tvatta, from you. And I have also heard about the Avyayam, the changeless, Mahatmyam, the greatness, your changeless greatness. So, O lotus-eyed Krishna, one whose eyes are like lotus petals, the origin and destruction of all objects and beings have surely been heard by me in great detail from you. And not only that, I have also heard from you about your unchangeable greatness. Arjuna summarizes the nature of Bhagavan, which he covered in chapter 7 to 10 in this verse. In fact, my Guruji Swami Advayananda describes this quite beautifully. Mahatmyam Avyayam, his unchangeable greatness. Swami Advayananda ji says, he remains a non-doer even as creation, sustenance and destruction happens. As the Antaryami, he remains completely untouched. As the Antaryami, what does he do? He gives power to all the jiva to perform actions. So giving us all the power to perform actions, he remains untouched. Oftentimes, don't we see, how did I do this? Even we find it like acham, we are quite surprised to see that, did I really do this? That power of action that comes to us, from where does it come? We don't even know that, right? It comes from somewhere within. He says that Antaryami, he gives that power for all the jiva to perform action. And as the karma phala data, we perform action, results more often than not are not what we have in our control at all. Results come to us. And that karma phala data, he remains untouched while he is enabling us to get the result. This is the beautiful way in which my Guru describes this aspect of Bhagavan, which Arjuna summarizes here. Thus, essentially, in the above two verses, Arjuna acknowledges that he has understood the aspects of Atma Swarupa, Atma Jnana, Atma Swarupa, and Bhagavat Swarupa, the nature of the self and the nature of Ishvara. He also shows that he has faith, and he also shows that he accepts what Sri Krishna has taught. He doesn't have doubt, right? And with that acceptance, with this summary, with this acknowledgement that Bhagavan, this is what I've learned from you up till now, he makes a request. We go to the next verse.
Evame tadyata tattvam
Evametad yatha tattvam
atmanam parameshwara
atmanam parameshwara
drashtumichhami te rupam
drashtumichhami te rupam
aishwaram purushottama.
aishwaram purushottama evametad yatha tattvam atmanam parameshwara drashtumichhami te rupam aishwaram purushottama. So he says yatha, as, tvam, you, etad, this, all of this, and all, thus the way you have described. Tatatvam, you have described all of this. All of what? Atmanam Parameshwara, yourself, O Parameshwara, O Lord of all. The way you have described yourself, O Supreme Bhagavan, O Supreme Lord of all. And he says, Ichhami, I wish, drashtum, to see, te rupam, te aishwaryam rupam, your divine form, your divine rupa, O Purushottama, O prime among all. So Arjuna addresses Bhagavan as Parameshwara and as Purushottama. And he says, as you have thus described yourself, O Parameshwara, O Supreme Lord, I wish to see your divine form, O Purushottama, O prime among all of your own creations. So, one who in himself expresses, like Bhagavan in himself expresses omnipotence, infinite wisdom. We have seen till now, right? The amount of wisdom that he is able to share, unending. The strength, virtue, detachment, splendor, all of this, one who is able to express in himself is the Ishvara. And that's what Arjuna refers to, and this is stated in Vishnu Purana. The Lord of all, the Parameshwara. When Arjuna says Parameshwara, he is referring to this Lord who in himself expresses these aspects: omnipotence, infinite wisdom, strength, virtue, detachment, splendor. And also the one who is the receptacle in which all other beings, objects, all forms have their existence. Everything exists in that being. One who transcends all, that is the Purushottama. So Arjuna is not just enthusiastic, he is actually borderline fanatic in making this request. And if you read this verse again, it is almost not a request, it's a demand. He says, I wish to see. Okay? He says, Evam etad yatha tattvam, Atmanam Parameshwara, drashtum ichhami te rupam, Aishwaram Purushottama. I wish to see this yourself, this form of yourself that you have described. So he gives Bhagavan the respect by addressing him as Parameshwara and Purushottama. But he is actually saying that I wish to see. And he quickly realizes that and he tempers it down in the next verse.
Manyase yadi tachakyam.
Manyase yadi tachakyam.
Maya drashtumiti prabho.
maya drashtumiti prabho.
Yogeshvara tato me tvam
Yogeshvara tato me tvam
darshayatman mavyamam
darshayatmanam avyayam manyase yadi tatchakyam maya drashtumiti prabho. Yogeshvara tato me tvam darshayatmanam avyayam. So he says, Bhagavan, O Lord, if you think that it is possible. Earlier he says, I wish to see. Here he says, if you think it is possible for me to see, the way you have described yourself, then, O Lord of Yoga, O Yogeshwara, please show me your form, your self form, completely, avyayam. So, Prabhu, hey Prabhu, O Lord, yadi, if, manyase, you think, tat, chakyam, that it is possible, maya, for me, drashtum, to see, iti, in this manner. Then, tato, O Yogeshwara, Lord of all yogas, tvam, you show me, drashya me, show me what? Atmanam, your self form, which is avyayam, completely. Avyayam has two meanings, something that is indestructible, and show me fully, completely. So he addresses Sri Krishna as Hey Prabhu. Prabhu is one who is capable of bringing about creation, sustenance, and dissolution. We say no God. We say God is an acronym for generator, operator, destroyer. That is Prabhu, that God. So what does he do? Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. Srishti as in creation, Sthiti as in sustenance, and Laya as in destruction. So that is Ishvara. That is Prabhu. Ishvara is not only capable of these three, but additionally Pravesha. Pravesha means entry. Ishvara appearing as the Jiva, the Avatara Rahasya, the Avatar. Ishvara is also, in addition to creation, sustenance, destruction, he does Pravesha. He is capable of doing Pravesha. And Prashasana. Prashasana is all controllership, establishing that cosmic order. When things go wrong, I will come and I will re-establish Dharma. I will come for the sake of preserving Dharma. Understanding this and expressing the same, Arjuna addresses Sri Krishna as Yogeshwara. Hey Yogeshwara, O Lord of Yogas. O Lord of Yogas, for whom nothing is impossible. For you, O Bhagavan, nothing is impossible. You can give me this drishti, this vision. See, yogi have siddhas. They have siddhi, what is called known as siddhis. All yogis are known to have, even normal yogis, they have siddhis. They can do things that other people cannot. So the Ashta Siddhis, you would also, when you recite Hanuman Chalisa, you come to Ashta Siddhi, right? So the Ashta Siddhis are anima, becoming small as an atom that can be perceived. Mahima, becoming infinitely large. Garima, becoming infinitely heavy. Laghima, becoming almost weightless, completely extremely light. And then Prapti. Prapti is the ability to be anywhere at will. Prakamya, the ability to obtain anything. Ishitva, power to create and control. And Vashitva, the power to subjugate. So these are the siddhis. And yogis have these siddhis. And the Lord of all yoga, Yogeshwara, is the inexhaustible, imperishable one who has a treasure of knowledge, treasure of strength, treasure of sovereignty, treasure of valor, treasure of power, and treasure of glory. That Yogeshwara, to a level that is inconceivable by any aspect of creation, including the yogis who have siddhis. That Yogeshwara, Arjuna says, only you, O Yogeshwara, can make this happen. And if you think it is possible for me to be able to see, for me to envision, then, O Yogeshwara, please reveal everything about yourself to me. And what does Bhagavan do now? Does he say, hey, this is Guhya, secret, I cannot show you? No, he doesn't do that. He says, behold, O Partha, see. And we shall also behold in the next satsang. Thank you very much, Hari Om. We'll just do Purnamata and then we'll stop for questions. Om Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you, Hari Om. Any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. This is about, you said that when, the Gita says, when we die, we leave the body, mind, intellect, and only the Atman goes. Okay? I mean, it goes. But what about the karma? It also goes with the Atman. If you're talking about the Jivatma, it goes along with the, it is carried along with the Atma, isn't it? Because we are going to have a rebirth and karma takes place again. So does the Atman not, I mean, it's always been mind-boggling to understand this aspect.
Actually, I've actually explained this in the group. I had written it down. No? I will locate it and resend it to you. But
Okay.
yes, so the prarabdha karma, when you come back into the world, into the jagat, you come with that accumulated karma.
Yeah, but then when we go, that means the Atman takes the karma also along with it, isn't it?
Let's put it this way: like we, like the money that I've kept in a mutual fund, I am not carrying it in my being. It is there. It is in my account. My karma is in my account. It is there. I don't know whether physically none of us have seen whether the Atma is holding the karma and carrying it or not. But the point is that against that Atma, the karma is there in the account of that Atma. Yes. And when the soul comes,
this is where it is confusing for the mind to understand, this aspect.
That's why the best analogy with the help of which I was able to understand, and some others, if you have understood, you can also explain, is this aspect of the bank account. Right? Okay, so this is my account. This, like I have an account which has financial assets, I have a karmic account which contains my prarabdha karma, sanchita karma, and the agami karma, which I am which is happening to me around as I'm acting.
Another thing which is also quite confusing is, according to the Shankara theory, the world is a mithya. So when the Atma goes, it's not the Jivatma that goes, it is the Atma that goes, is it? Or is it the Jivatma that goes? It's quite contradictory and very difficult to understand. Which is that, where does the concept of Jivatma come in when the whole thing is a mithya?
Right. So let's put it this way. Yes, there are various schools of philosophy.
Thought, yeah, the various schools of thought.
So as per one school of thought, the Atman, pure Atman, the true self is going. The one that goes, the Jiva is left behind. In some school of philosophy, they describe it in a different way. But the best, like we have covered this, actually, we have talked about this earlier also. My way of looking at it is, see, right now, at the level of evolution that we are at the level of learning that we are at, even when we talk about moksha, right? Very related topic, moksha. Moksha is at the level of, the Jivan Mukti and the Videha Mukti. Jivan Mukti is where the Jivatma, the one who is embodied, is attaining mukti. What is that mukti? That mukti is a state of living in the world like a Padma Patram Ivam Bhasa, like a lotus petal is in contact with water. Similarly, living in this world in contact with this pluralistic world, doing the action, doing the duties, but not becoming tainted by it. And if we do that and keep doing it over a period of time in our years, we reach a state where we are able to do what we are doing. At the same time, we are from a jiva perspective equanimous and are able to focus, meditate, concentrate on Bhagwan and be devoted to it. That is the ultimate mukti as far as this life is concerned. This person is able to live this life in a very equanimous manner, in a realization while being in this body. That is Jivan Mukti. At the level of spiritual progress we are in, if we strive and achieve that itself is good enough. Now, Videha Mukti comes after that. So, Videha Mukti we have studied in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Bhagavan talks about the path of light, the path of darkness. How does the one who has knowledge, what is the path that that person takes? What is the path that the person who is ignorant takes? How does the person come back? How does the person with knowledge attain ultimate Videha Mukti? That also we have studied. That is good for us to know, but I don't want to stress myself thinking about what is good, whether I'm going to get.
We have to experience it. We cannot find out without our own personal experience.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. It was very nice session.
I think some of the sannyasis who have gone to a level of attainment, they aspire to get with him. For them, they aspire that this is my last birth. Honestly, I am thinking that probably I still need a birth or two to get to that level. So my focus is more on Jivan Mukti, and at this point in time, I'm not praying to God for Videha Mukti like some sannyasis. So if nothing else, then we will conclude today's satsang, and we will meet next Saturday. We will continue with chapter 11. Thank you all. Hari Om.